Chess is one of the most famous games in history. Almost every person in our country and across the world know about chess. But not many people actually understand the game or the rules and depth of strategy that it contains. The origins of chess are not exactly clear, but it is hypothesized that it originated from games from India, and the current game that we play today originated in 15th century Europe, according to chess.com on April 4th, 2016. Chess is a very complex game with many rules behind it, and the majority of the rules reside in the pieces that we play with. Each player gets one turn to move any piece that they choose, as long as this piece is not obstructed in its path of movement along the board. Now, let's look at the different pieces of the game and see how to move them. The first piece I'm going to present to you is the king. Now, the king is the most important piece in the game because that is the goal of each player, is to capture the enemy king. And according to Instructables.com, the king is the most important piece is because it is the goal to capture. The king has the most limited moveset of any piece because it can only move one square in each direction as long as that path is not obstructed by any other piece. And the only limit to this direction is if the king moves in a position where it could be captured by the enemy. Now this is known as check, which I will get into later. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to actually put a player into a check. Now for example, say one player has a king on the board in the original position, and one player has a queen very close to it, but not able to take it. The king cannot move into a position where the queen or any other piece can take it. That is against the rules and you cannot do that. Otherwise the game will either end in a draw or an immediate loss for the player. The next piece I will describe to you will be the queen, which is the strongest piece on the entire board. The queen has the least limitations on its movement, and the only limit is that you cannot go over another piece. It can move in any direction, left, right, forward, and even diagonal for any length. The next pieces I'm going to talk to you about are not as unique as the king or queen because there are multiple of them per person, but each of them have special traits. And the first one I'm going to go over is the rook. The rook is the castle-looking one that can move for any length across the board and only two directions: forward, backward, or left and right. Those are the only positions it can move, and it cannot go in any diagonal direction. These are placed at the bottom corners of the board. The next piece I'm going to go over is the bishop. Now, the bishop is the opposite of the rook, in that it can only move for any length diagonally, which means that it can only stay on the same color throughout the entire board. The next piece I'm going to talk about is the knight. The knight is a very strange piece because of its look and also because of the way it moves. The knight moves either three places forward and one square left or right, which means that it can move in a slight diagonal direction. And the knight is also a unique piece because it is the only piece that can actually move over another piece. Meaning that it's very good for offense and for a first move to actually pass over the pawns of the enemy. The rook, also going back to it, has a unique trait called castle, in which if the king in its original position and the rook in its original position have not moved, they can switch places with each other, making it a great tactic to actually defend your king with and to take it away from a possible check or checkmate. The next piece I'm going to talk about is the pawn, which is the most common piece because there are 8 of them per person, but it is the most simple looking and the simplest piece of the game. The pawn, there are 8 pawns per person, and they are placed forward above as the front line per each person. The pawn can only move 1 tile ahead each turn, but if it has not moved and it is in its original position, it can move forward a whopping 2 tiles. The pawn also has a unique ability to actually capture enemy pawns or enemy pieces, and that it cannot take them by just landing on the square. It has to take them by a diagonal direction. This rule is in place because whenever you move your pawns forward, by the end of it, it's just going to be pawns attacking each other, and that's not what the game should be about. It has to be more strategy and that way the pawns don't just end up crashing into each other head first and just winning the game. Now that you know all the pieces, it's time to set up the board. As I stated before, the pawns each go on the front line, and there are 8 of them per person. The rooks go on the bottom 2 corners of each piece, and the bishops go right next to the king and the queen, as such. And the knights go in between the bishops and the rooks. And that is how you complete a chessboard and how you set it up for the first move. The game itself becomes much easier once you actually understand the rules and the goals of the game. But you should keep in mind some strategies. Controlling the center of the board is the most important because that's what limits the opponent from how they move and the moves that they can take. The opponent is always going to be keeping an eye on your king, so you should always be looking to defend your king at almost every move. Because not only are you going to be attacking their king, they're going to be attacking yours, which means you have to be playing offensive and defensive every single turn. And that is why the game is a mastery of strategy, tactic, and also thinking ahead. Chess is a very complex game, but it's easy to pick up with the proper knowledge of the pieces and the rule set. The game requires a large amount of planning and studying to win, and that is why it is considered to be one of the greatest intellectual games of history. And that is why it's still being played today. Masters of this game play it their entire lives, and they still cannot find a way to perfectly play it because there is no optimal way to actually play this game. I hope that this demonstration has helped you understand the game of chess and the way that you can use it in your life.